Brews and Banter.
Hi, Frank.
Hey, Roman, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great as well.
What a busy week we've had.
Busy week, nice weather. That's going to change
weather.
it.
Podcast has been super busy. We had guests back to back. We have great beer today.
I have a great guest today.
Absolutely. And let's get her introduced, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and this is Kayla. You can go ahead and introduce yourselves, and we'll start from there.
Hello, my name is Kayla ShaDay. Thank you guys so much for having me on the show today. I'm excited to be here. I am the founder and owner of a small production company called FITC Entertainment, and I'm currently the artist manager for a Korean punk band called Mary Heyday.
Perfect. Yeah, I know there's so under your umbrella of your business, for you, you have many talents as far as photography and other things. Is that all included under the umbrella of this business?
It sure is.
Perfect.
So I actually still do photography. I work with quite a few artists, both here in the States and in Korea. As far as photography, videography services go, I manage one artist currently, and they based out of Korea. And then I'm talking to another one in negotiations with them right now, stateside.
Perfect.
For management.
Perfect. So one other thing, we should probably start with what we're drinking, or just a drink.
Yes.
I'm a little behind you.
Well, you get ready, and then Frank and I can say what we have.
Perfect.
So we're drinking. These are Genesee cream ales.
Yes.
Is what we're drinking. I don't know if you're familiar with cream ale, just another style beer.
Yep. And Genesee is here from New York. So.
Yes, sir. And we're part of this hoppedupnetwork.com. They kind of invited us to join their program. People can check us out on their website. It's just something we need to mention, during our podcast. So, do that for beer-related things, and let's cheers and get started.
Absolutely. Cheers, Kayla.
Cheers.
What do you got there, a Heineken?
Right now, I've got a Heineken, and if I make it through this one, I might pour me a little vodka energy drink, but instead of Red Bull vodka, I have Bang Candy Apple Crisp because I'm feeling a little cozy today.
Nice.
I'll tell you what I've had. I was buying these Bangs directly from. I think they come out of Florida, and I got the variety pack, and that's my favorite. The favorite one, the candy one. And what is it? Cotton candy?
It's a candy apple crisp, so It's almost like apple pie or like apple cider kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So good enough. We're going to get through this together. We'll make it happen.
Wonderful.
So, Kayla, you're coming back from a busy schedule.
I am.
Why don't we start there, and then we'll kind of jump into how the whole thing started.
Yeah, absolutely. So
what was the recent project?
Well, I just got the band that I manage, Mary Heyday, back on the plane, and they landed just a few hours ago back in South Korea from their first American tour.
When you managed,
they were here for a month. Yeah, we hit California, we hit Texas, we hit a lot of snags. Yeah. So I'm no stranger to setbacks or snags. Mm-hmm. But overall, it went incredibly well, and I've already got people asking me when they can come back.
Yes.
So
that's great.
Do you run into a lot of logistical issues as far as scheduling? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure
do.
I'm sure in country is enough problems, but even outside.
Yeah, I actually split my time between here and South Korea. Y'all caught me while I'm here for maybe about another 8 weeks or so, taking care of some things here in the States, and then I'll be right back to Korea to work with the guys. Other snags that we've had, we just lost our drummer and we had to replace him because of the scandal. It kind of comes par for the course.
Sure.
But we had to make a large pivot and decide whether or not we were going to actually cancel the tour or continue with it when we lost him. But the guys decided to persist, largely at my encouragement.
Sure.
Nice.
And things went as well as they possibly could have given the situation. So.
Well, I think it's a win because you said people are asking for them to come back. So
exactly. And it wasn't quite the tour that we had planned. They were here for a month. And I had to drop at least a dozen shows for them because the whole thing broke out 2 weeks before they were supposed to leave Korea and come to the States. And then they were supposed to have their first show a week after they arrived. And with it being 2 weeks before the whole thing was to start and last for a month, it doesn't take a mathematician to know that one drummer is not going to have a month-long availability open for 2 weeks before the course, having never heard the music, never met the guys, never played with them. It was just impossible. And even more so for someone from South Korea to take off for a month to go to the United States, buy a ticket 2 weeks out from flying to America, get their lodging, get their visas all taken care of. It was pretty much impossible. So I dropped about a dozen shows and I decided to pivot into a networking and collaboration kind of tour as well. So I used a lot of the contacts. I'm actually an LA film graduate, Los Angeles Film School graduate from the entertainment business program. And the entire thing basically was manned and headed up by people that graduated from LA Film or LA Recording Studio.
That's great. That was good hands-on for them too.
Yeah, it thank God for that network, honestly. Like, it's been so helpful to me because they were the ones that got us out to Texas. We included other shows here in California. I got to meet a lot of new producers, a lot of new artists, and many, many, many of them are interested in collaborating with Mary Heyday. So we've really started to try and bridge a gap and give something other than just K-pop to the United States. So I'm happy to be a part of that.
And that's where this, you hear all that, and that's where this vodka energy drink comes in.
I think K-pop is getting popular here in U.S. I mean, my wife talks about it, and you see on Reels all the time. So it's growing here.
It really is. It really, of course, everyone and their dog by now knows BTS, which is absolutely amazing. And it's no discount to everything that they've done, because they crippled the United States. They had the Beatles effect from an Asian country, and that is incredible.
Yeah.
I was like, you've got this little itty bitty country that is bordered by North Korea on one end, China beyond that, and then just water. And then you've got this like entertainment mecca in the middle of all that. It's a wild phenomenon when you think about it. And it's really cool because I'm half Asian, I'm half Vietnamese, and I'm half American. And I grew up not having a whole lot of representation in media that was outside of sexy hot Asian chick, martial artist, or nerd. Those were the three that we really saw. And as far as Asian celebrities, you didn't have a whole lot. One female I could name off the top of my head that I saw in the early 2000s and late 90s was Lucy Liu.
Yeah. Right.
That was pretty much it.
That's
and you
who
could
came
name
up.
more. I love Lucy Liu.
Yeah.
I love Lucy. Don't get me wrong. But I think my favorite one had to be Tia Carrera from Wayne's World.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Favorite movie. And I rewatched it with the guys while they were here. And as I was watching it, because it's been a while, I was like, this movie really does explain a lot about me if you watch it pretty closely.
It's interesting because when you go back and watch some of the old movies, you pick things out that you didn't before, right? As you know, as you mature, you have different life experiences, and you're like, oh shit, that's what that means. Like, oh, I can relate to that.
Yeah, and the lead singer JJ was just like, damn, that's you 30 years ago.
Oh, jab with a jab.
I guess so. And I was like, the only difference was I was definitely not looking like that 30 years ago. I was lucky to be getting out of diapers about 30 years ago. Let's be real.
How long have you been with them?
I actually met them a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Just a little over a year ago. And it's one of those, like, for me, it feels like it was just fate. Like, it was one of those clandestine, serendipitous moments because we met through a friend of 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 a friend while I was in Korea the year before. So meeting them took a whole year after all of the events started taking place. And I happened to be in Korea. I was seeking some medical treatment and everything because it's cheaper for me to go to Korea than it is for me to get medical attention here.
Sure. Yeah.
But so I was there and our friends happened to be getting married. They were like, yo, why don't you come to our wedding? It's a concert. It's like, what? Like, yeah, we're having a concert. And so I was just like, I thought, well, yeah, of course I want to go to a concert. You're not having a ceremony? Of course I'm going to go to a concert. And she's like, yeah, my fiance is a musician, so we're having all of our friends play for a concert instead of the typical like ceremony, rings, blah 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 blah. So I was like, cool.
So
their ceremony actually sold out 3 days before the event, and I wasn't supposed to be able to be there because in Korea you actually have to pre-order using your bank account.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wild setup, but it's efficient. You just transfer money from one bank account to the other, and you just know your bank account number off the top of your head, which is a wild thing as an American for me.
What is it, like 5 digits?
Yeah.
Oh God, I was just like, this seems so sketchy. You just give people your bank account info.
Yeah.
What is this?
You got to have just a South Korean bank account, just so if that ever gets compromised, it's only that account.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. Oh. And so I was like, I don't have an account. I couldn't like pre-order or anything. I'm so sorry. I wanted to make it. She's like, no, you're coming. So she put me on the list. She's like, just pay cash when you get here. She's like, we'll kick some other person out. You're good. So okay, fine. And I was coming off of a really, really tough 5 years of my life. And I've been largely absent from the entertainment industry as a whole because I had gone through so much and I was in survival mode to the max. And Mary Heyday came on and I got those little like tummy bubbles, the little butterflies. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
Something's there.
I'm onto something here. I was watching them and I was just like, the lead singer had a glass of whiskey in his hand, first of all.
This is just perfect for us.
Exactly. And they've got 2 songs about whiskey. So I was like, these are my kind of people.
Nice.
First of all. I looked at them and I was like, they're really good, but I bet they ain't got one business brain cell between the 4 of them. Mm-hmm. I was correct.
So did you go there? So before you met them, was your plan to be a manager or some sort of representation for a K-pop band, or did that kind of happen because of that meeting?
Yeah, that was definitely not my intention whatsoever. This is my second Korean artist that I managed. I did work in K-pop quite closely. I managed a former idol in 2017, and I really enjoyed the process of it. It was just so much red tape that it really kind of pushed me off from it. So I was just like, I'm actually going to go back and use this as part of my healing because it was either heal or jump off a bridge. That's honestly where I was at with my mentality. And my grandma didn't raise no quitter. So I decided to fight forward. And I was there really just making a photography book, an immersive phototherapy book for other people that have mental health issues like anxiety, depression, PTSD. I struggle with imposter syndrome very heavily, so much so that I can't look at myself in the mirror for really more than a couple minutes before I'm like, I don't know who that is. Okay. I can't look. But I was just there like working on healing and everything. And I hadn't had any plan to be a manager, but like they lit something inside of me again that I hadn't felt in so long. And so I actually asked them, I was like, hey, going back to my other hats that I wear, I'm a photographer. I happen to be in town. And I specialize in live event photography. Would it be cool if I came and shot a show for you while I'm here? Just like, you don't got to pay me. I'll do it for free. I was on a tourist visa anyway, so I couldn't work and I couldn't earn money. But I was like, I'll just come. I'd love to shoot for you guys and give you guys the images. And he was like, yeah, sure. They loved him the first time around, invited me to a second show. And after the second show, remember the problematic drummer I mentioned? I stopped him from getting his ass beat by this drunk man that randomly beelined across the street and took a fight with him out of nowhere. So this guy came over and he started picking a fight with the drummer. I got between them because I was like, yeah, I'll get deported. It's fine. The drummer's mother was with us. And the last thing I wanted was for her to see her son's ass get beat. And I ended up circle throwing this guy into the street while yelling for the other guys to come back. And the lead singer comes back and he just goes, fuck. So do you double as a bodyguard? And I was like, I charge extra. My rate doubled for bodyguard services.
You passed the audition anyway.
Yeah. And so he asked me later that night, and I say night very loosely because in Korea, there are many, many nights that turn into mornings.
Oh.
And he asked me this question about 3:00 in the morning after we went to karaoke at a Norebang and had an Americano at 1:30 in the morning. And this is with the mother in tow, mind you.
Oh, wow.
So he asked me this question at 3 a.m. He was like, "Oh, have you ever considered being a manager?" And that's when I told him that it wasn't my first rodeo. I would consider it if the conditions are right.
Mm-hmm.
So we kept in contact, kept talking back and forth. And he was just like, "All right, yep, that's it. You're in." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "I've decided you're the manager." So I was like,
that's perfect. And that's the way
bonus.
That's the way these stories go. You persevere, you're kind of down a little bit, and you get to turn it around, and then you get this sort of inspiration you're mentioning, and then you get these stories. I mean, sadly, if this is your second show or third show with them, and those are happening, and you're going to be managing these guys for a long time, you're going to be going through a lot of shit.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing I told him, especially because I've managed a few American artists. I've managed a Korean artist as well. Cultural differences are real. They're very real. Mm-hmm. And if you're not aware of that, it can, especially in a small community like the Korean community, you will either sink or swim. Once you sink, you are sunk. And once you're blacklisted, there's no coming back because one person won't work with you. Mm-hmm. The rest of them won't work with you. They all talk together.
Yeah. Reputation's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I was like, look, let's take a beat. I'm super excited. I'm very interested. I love y'all's music so much. It's great. I've been bopping to it. You guys have a lot of potential. You've got a lot of potential. I just need to know, one, is this a hobby for you? Or is this a thing for you? Is this what you want to do? And two, I will gladly give you guys advice and recommendations over the span of 1 year. My plan is to have you on tour in the States in 1 year, but I also want you to decide then if we're a good fit, because I want to take a year for you to build that trust with me and build that relationship with me that you need, because you're essentially going to be married to me. Mm-hmm. I was like, you're probably going to talk to me more than your mother. Mm-hmm. Mothers. And I was correct. Mm. So coming off of this, when I dropped them off, they were just like, yeah, this is pretty much it. We're essentially, they told me, they're like, if the new drummer doesn't vibe with you, and if you don't vibe with the drummer, they're not our drummer.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So,
Kayla, I gotta say, I mean, you've accomplished quite a bit with this band in 1 year.
Yeah, I feel like an underachiever. I feel like we suck in life. You got all this shit going on. We're sitting here drinking out of a glass with, kind of beer that's, $20 a case.
you meant
yeah, but a lot of the things that I've done with this band have included copious amounts of alcohol.
Yeah. And that's good. Business decisions are always really great after lots of alcohol.
Well, if y'all are ever in Korea, just know that most business meetings are held in attachment to soju and chicken and beer, soju. There's alcohol involved for, I would say, 85% of business meetings in Korea.
Looks like we're going to Korea.
I've been to Seoul Airport, but not outside of it.
Well, I mean, okay. And I will tell you now, Incheon International Airport shits all over LAX.
Yeah.
I was so pissed off yesterday. Oh my God. When they came from Korea, I left a week early to come arrange everything for them and get all their arrangements made here. I got their accommodations done, made sure like all their budgets were taken care of. I was their driver. I was basically their wallet. They didn't have to worry about anything while they were here because I wanted them to focus on their tasks at hand, as a manager does. Mm-hmm. And they sent me a picture. They were like, we can't bring our guitars into the cabin, so they're making us put them underneath. And I was like, okay, what are they doing for it? And he sent me a picture. JJ sent me a picture of them bubble wrapping their guitars, putting them in a box, marking them with Fragile and everything. It was cool. I was like, all right, I'm nervous, but at least they're taking some precautions. I went to LAX and in their international oversized baggage drop, it's just a drop. There's no bubble wrap. There's no boxes, no nothing. And this is why I always tell people, if you're taking an international flight, get your ass there 4 hours early in case shit hits the fan, because it definitely did. It felt so illegal going into the airport, having them check in, and then leaving to go to UPS. to go bubble wrap and box these things ourselves. I was like, this feels so illegal. I feel like I can't be doing this. What is happening?
These guitar contraband is bad stuff.
Oh, God. And I was like, how is this an international airport and you don't have any of these services available?
Yeah.
None. And I was like, and you're servicing the rest of the world. I'm like, that's it. For Christmas, they're all getting hard cases.
This is another arm of FITC.
It is. It could be.
International packaging.
I was really impressed with Seoul. If we ever, my wife's Filipina, so I fly to the Philippines, and we fly through Seoul. So I'm like, oh, nice. We fly Korean Air. I love it. We go through Seoul, and they have rooms where you can like go and sleep. They have these areas where you can sleep. So, they also have Dunkin' Donuts.
They've got Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah. Did you know in KFC? You go into KFC in the airport. They've got fried chicken skins. You can just get the skins, but they also have beer on the menu.
Oh, wow.
That's Korean fried chicken.
It is. And it's all over KFC in the States. I will stand by that. Nice. I took them to KFC here, and they were so sad. They immediately asked for another meal. I was like, when I pulled into the parking spot, I was like, man, now y'all can taste the mediocrity of American KFC. Yeah. They're like, it can't be that bad. They took one bite, and they were just like, we go to Taco Bell?
Yeah, that's sad when Taco Bell's the upgrade.
I was like, yeah, Taco Bell is the drunk 3 a.m. meal here.
Yeah. Same.
But by all means, it is.
I was impressed how close Dunkin' Donuts tasted to Dunkin' Donuts in the States. And
it is. I haven't had a lot of Dunkin' Donuts, primarily because I normally spend my time on the left coast out here in the West, and we don't do a lot of that. But damn, Dunkin' Donuts in Korea is so good. I tried it here, and I was like, at least there's a little consistency. A little bit.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So why Korea? I know you said you're half Vietnamese.
Yeah.
So why Korea? How did you venture into Korea? So not only you managing a band now, but you're also doing your photography for healing photography also in Korea. What steered you into Korea?
Oh, so back to when I mentioned that I didn't really have a lot of influence for Asian representation growing up. It's definitely a part of that. I was 6 months into my I guess my studies at LA Film School, and then one of my classmates showed me BTS, and I was like, you mean they're popular there? They're not overly martial artists. They're not nerdy looking guys. If anything, they look like they're attractive men. They're dancing and singing. What? So I took all of my work, because I had previously done photography for some alternative rock people here. I worked with All Time Low, Good Charlotte, Simple Plan.
Oh, good.
Done photography for all them, and I just made a hard left. Everything in my company became about exploring more about Asian cultures and working in that kind of market. And I never looked back. So the only reason that it's actually K-pop, to be completely honest, is that it was the first one that really found me. Mm-hmm. Had it been, because I've worked with One OK Rock as well, done photography for them, but I hadn't seen anything beyond that. People, oh God, my classmates, I'm pretty sure I drove them nuts, and my professors probably think so too, or thought so. When in 2016, I was like, okay, I was one of those babbling K-pop fans. I was like, you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. And then I realized that a lot of people weren't listening to me. And that's okay. That's okay. Because you know what? They listen to me now.
Right. That's right.
I told you.
And I know the owners of 3 different labels. They were like, how did you do that? I was just like, I don't know how, but it just felt right. My gut, I kind of call myself I kind of say I have a Gibbs gut, NCIS.
Yeah, right.
Like from way back when. I love that show. But I joke that when it comes to entertainment, I have a Gibbs gut, and that it's never wrong. It always points me to true north. And if it's tingling, I follow it.
Sure.
Now, if only it works for my personal life.
Follow your gut.
It seems it seems like you're gonna be pretty busy moving forward anyway. So that personal life will be challenging as well. You got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Other artists.
I have to think about it if I don't have time for it.
yeah. But you said there's other artists you're looking at or people you're communicating with now. So people they're not necessarily signed with you, but people you're trying to make that happen.
Yeah, so I actually don't sign anyone directly to my company.
Oh, okay.
So anyone that signs a contract with me, it's between myself as an individual and them. Mm-hmm. And then my company is all of the work that I provide for other people, actually. So I'm a big believer in relationship over pretty much anything. My circle is really small. It's very tight. And I would much rather facilitate work within that small trusted circle of people that I have than bring in a bunch of people and say, let's see what sticks, it's really important to me. I'm very open to meeting new people and collaborating, but if we don't vibe right off the bat, my gut tells me we're probably not ever going to actually vibe and mesh well together. And I'm not a fan of wasting anyone's time.
Yeah, and that's a good business model because you're gonna keep it small enough where you can still produce a good product and throw your whole effort behind it, and not compromise what's best for both parties or all parties for that matter. Yeah.
And a good relationship will sustain that. I mean, I agree with you. I'd rather have 5-10 good friends than 200 who are full of shit,
I'm still looking for a new podcast host, so if you want to replace Roman, we can talk about that.
Well, at least I'm not full of shit.
That's so funny. I was talking to actually the groom from the wedding that I told you all about. He was listening to a little bit of my life story, and he was like, "Damn, you should have a podcast."
Nice.
It could just be called Tragic but True.
Well, and it would work for you. I mean, you can chronicle all your travels. I mean, it's a lot of work for us, social media, all these things. But if you're already kind of into it, then maybe it's a natural progression for you.
Yeah, and what's great is that this tour was so much work. It was so much work, and there's so much behind the scenes that no one sees, including the band. I would say they have no idea what is happening and what I'm actually doing 85% of the time. The only things that they see are the things that I bring to them for them to say yes or no to, or to tell them, hey, this is what you said yes to. This is when it's happening. This is what you need. So they don't see, they'll see me on my phone, but they won't see that I'm messaging podcasts. They won't see that I'm messaging the film school. The film school actually just had an event for me. Weird. They held what's called an EB Presents. I graduated with an entertainment business degree, and it's called Entertainment Business Presents, and it was Kayla ShaDay and Mary Hayday. So they brought us in, and we did a talk about their tour, about their music, about what it's like to work with me and my crazy ass, and about what they want from their careers. And it went really well. So they don't see a lot of that. And they didn't realize just how big it was until they walked into the main stage area, and they was like,
well, on their end, they're like, look at the fucking value we're getting here. Our bodyguard is doing all this other shit for us.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, man, we chose the right manager, and you should be proud of that. I mean, that's awesome. Good for you.
And I'll tell you, with the imposter syndrome, it's been hard. There are a lot of days where I question everything that I'm doing and everything about myself. Am I really in the right line of work? Do they really trust me? I guess a lot of it is a bit of paranoia just based on prior experiences that I've had. With the colleague that showed me K-pop, they ended up really taking all of the things that they knew about me and they threw it through the garbage to other close friends of mine. basically saying that I'm a shit photographer, I'm a shit manager, I'm a shit friend, I'm just a garbage human being, doesn't know why anyone wants to work with me, why no one remembers her instead of me. But then I realized, like, that's really just you projecting all of your insecurities on me.
Yeah, people are dicks, right? Like
they are,
yeah.
they are, and they can be. And
There
what
will
sucks
always
is
be
that,
haters.
yeah, and they were my best friend for 7 years. So they definitely did push me, and a lot of the things that I did is because I had their support and what I felt like was support. But it was to my face, but as soon as my back was turned, I had knives sticking out of my back. So it took me a while, and this just happened last year. It took me a while to really just kind of process that people will take what makes you the most insecure and weaponize it against you. And a lot of the times it's going to be the people that you never thought would.
Yeah. And good or bad, I mean, it's making you who you are today and the success that you are or going to be and where you're going to grow from here. I mean, it is what it is, right? You got to deal with it.
And builds you a stronger personality as well.
I think so too. And at this point, I'm just like, fuck it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You either like me or you don't.
I
don't give a shit.
I say the same thing to
Good
Roman
for
every
you.
day, like just fuck it.
I was like, I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
If you want to talk shit on me, go ahead and talk shit on me, because I don't have ears in the back of my head, and I'm probably like hyper focused on something else with my ADHD anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't have the time to waste worrying about you and your insecurities, because I know that with what I'm doing, there's no way they haven't seen what I'm doing. So
that's right. And and really people like that, it's probably not unique to you. So if you've got someone or
I know
many
it's not
people
for sure. And so I openly talk about this, and people sometimes ask me, like, aren't you worried about what they say or what they'll think? And I was just like, if they didn't want me to talk about things that they did, they should have treated me better.
Right. Yeah, but they're also probably doing this, like I said, to other people, and then other people are going to start now knowing that all they do is talk shit. So like they'll fade away where you're going to kind of rise up. In my opinion, that's what I would kind of forecast happening, I suppose, with my Swami hat on.
And in all honesty, if they've got a thorn in their side in it, or I'm just like stuck in their craw or whatever, that's a them problem, not a me problem.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, ish you, not ish me.
Yeah, you got to think that way. Otherwise, you get too consumed with bullshit, in life.
God. Yeah, I just don't have time. I don't have the energy.
Kayla, how was your upbringing with your grandma? Like, can you give us a little story?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. My grandma is fan-fucking-tastic. And when I send this to her later, she's probably going to be like, Kayla, your mouth. This is my daily mouth.
We love our grandmas.
Oh, yeah. My grandma and my grandpa are the best grandparents that anyone could ask for. My grandma is my absolute best friend on the face of the planet. They raised me. My mom was actually adopted from Vietnam by my grandpa while he was stationed over there in 1971. And she could not take care of me. My father had just turned 18 and I was his second child. No way he was able to take care of me. So they just kind of handed me over to my grandparents and let them raise me. So I grew up in a super small town. I spent most of my time in a town of about 500 people. There was one flashing flashing yellow light, which has now been downgraded to a stop sign. So it's a 4-way stop.
It went downward.
Yeah, there was not a lot of diversity at all there. And then I grew up in a small town adjacent to it when I would spend my time with my grandma. And again, there was just not a lot of diversity, but my grandparents never made me feel like I was any different. They adopted my mom and they subsequently took me in as their own, and they did their best to raise me with what they knew how to do. My grandma's my rock and everything. I didn't know that I had a large family. I had an idea. I heard rumors that I had a large family growing up, but I'm the second oldest of 15 children.
Okay.
Very incredibly blended family. I grew up on a farm. Learned how to count by counting cows. with my grandpa every morning. Learn how to drive on a tractor.
Nice.
If it's got wheels and a motor, I can probably drive it. Yeah, and it was a very nice upbringing on the surface. There was a lot of trauma that happened underneath when I would visit my mom. But when all of that really came to light, I am a survivor of domestic violence.
I'm sorry.
As well, so I advocate against that. I've been through just a metric fuck ton of shit and garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandma has been there through thick and thin with me. I could not ask for a better grandmother.
And I'm glad you say metric fuck ton, because I say that a lot, and people are like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But that is a real. Yeah. Oh yeah. I say it all the time.
I mean,
I've got buddies from the from the Northwest, and that's where this originated from. One of my good friends is out that way, and so he introduced me to it a couple years ago. And people are like, "What is that? What does that mean?" Like, I'm like, "No, it's an actual unit of measure."
Yeah, it is.
It is a metric fuck ton.
I mean, in the labs, you use metric system when you measure.
That's right.
Things,
yeah. But we certainly admire your dedication, your thoroughness, and prior to, this is the first time for people listening or watching that we've ever talked, and I feel like I feel like we're friends. I really do.
For you too. Yeah. It's so easy to talk to you guys.
Same.
I've only had one beer and I can talk to you, so that's a good thing.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. I generally don't like a lot of people.
Yeah, no, and it's tough. I'm sure with what you've gone through in the past here, it's sort of you got to have a guard up, and understandably so. But it's something that we like to do. We like to hear these stories. We like to talk to people, and we do other things. It's just not beer. We kind of open it with beer, but it's not really about that. It's sort of the icebreaker. But we talk about military and police. We support our teachers, first responders. We like architecture. We like to look businesses, small businesses, women-owned businesses, which is what this is. But we just appreciate that.
We go around to like local businesses too, and we're like, hey, come on the podcast, or let us help spread the word of your business, or put it out there.
You got a great story for sure.
And your story, like your upbringing, we have big respect for you, especially anyone who has to go through hardship and then move on with life, be positive, build yourself stronger. Those are important values that I think today some people don't understand it or appreciate that. And my grandma raised me sometimes because my parents were working, so I remember all the things that she would like tell me and yell at me. Sometimes I would like get a smell of food and it would remind me of some of her cooking. Like I was going to ask you.
Yeah. And if anybody listening or watching doesn't like their grandma, just quit listening and watching right now.
Yeah, get out of here.
Not my people.
I wanted to ask you what reminds you, what kind of food that you remember from your grandma that is like your favorite, like a staple or like stuck with you, you know what I mean? Because I get the feeling, funny. So I wanted to ask you about that, and I'm kind of curious.
I've got a couple.
Oh, cool.
So my grandma would call them, my grandma was raised German. She's German, from Nebraska originally. And so I actually learned how to make mostly German foods. She would make potato pancakes. And my favorite was just so simple. Maybe you might know what it is, but it's just like toast, gravy, and corned beef. And we'd call it shit on a shingle.
Yeah. You know what? I am shocked. I feel like you're my spirit. You can't be my spirit animal because because we used to have that when I was younger.
Twin flame.
And my
we'll
mom,
call it twin flame.
My mom would call it shit on a shingle.
I've never heard of this.
But then it became everything. Like it was that. We had corned beef and stuff like that, but then she'd just start calling everything shit on a shingle. Like she'd make just shit mixed together and she'd call it shit on a shingle. But my mom was only 4'10", so it was like watching a little kid swear. It was fucking hilarious.
my mother is 4'8".
Oh, see, yeah.
Oh, you guys have something.
We might have the same mom. I think we're related. We might.
Are you secretly Vietnamese?
Well,
that's incredible.
The beard hides it, but maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, potato pancakes. Like, have she ever made like sweet potato pancakes? Or is that
Oh
not
yeah.
Mm.
I grew. God, I love German food. It's my comfort food. I love schnitzel. I love kielbasa. I love
yeah.
sauerkraut. Oh my God.
beer?
You give me I joke that I am a living potato. And because a lot of people are like potatoes plain and boring. And I'm like, no. Mm-mm. That's a bunch of noise. I'm a potato, but it depends on what mood I'm in. Sometimes I am a crinkle cut French fry. Sometimes I'm a waffle fry. And on fancy days, I will make myself into a whole ass loaded baked potato.
And when you're pissed off, you're a spud.
And when you're nice,
I'm a spud 100%. I was like, and on some days when I call them bad brain days, where it's just really loud in my head, I might just be a plain freshly picked potato and just existing. But there's nothing wrong with any of that.
Potatoes are good. We like
And
potatoes.
I really had to come to learn to accept that it's totally fine. Everyone wants consistency, and they want they have a look, right? And so a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you need to keep a consistent look when you go into the office or those kinds of things. And it's like, I'm not going to give them something that's not going to be consistent.
Yeah.
And the consistency with me is that it all depends on the day.
Yep. So
It all depends on the day.
we've made a lot of times I make kielbasa and sauerkraut, but I put beer in the crock pot. Oh yeah.
That's the only way to do it.
Yep.
The only way. If you're
Yeah.
not putting beer in your crock pot, you fucked it up.
That's right. That's it.
That's basically the most important step.
That is going to
For
be
instance-
that's going to be in my headstone. If you don't put beer in your crock pot, you fucked it up.
I include beer in a lot of my recipes. I actually picked one up from my mom, and this was one thing that I do. It's a really good memory with my mom. My mom is actually illiterate. She was adopted from Vietnam. And I love this story so much. I really do, because it shows to the character of my grandparents and how I was raised. My grandpa was stationed in Vietnam, and he walked into an orphanage where he was in charge of his unit. He was in the Air Force, and he asked for a sit rep, what the situation was. And this little girl came over, starts pulling on his leg, his pant leg, speaking a million miles an hour, which she still does to this day. And he's a good old farm boy from Poplar Bluff, Missouri. He ain't got no idea what she's saying in Vietnamese and just looks at the translator. And he was like, I don't know if they were telling me the truth or not, but they told me that she was saying, please don't leave me here. I want to go home with you. So he immediately turned and walked towards the office and filed the paperwork.
Yeah.
But
wow.
she's illiterate. She couldn't read or write. I was considered a very gifted child growing up, and I was very, very quick to pick up a lot of those things. But one of my favorite memories about my mom from my childhood is she would make venison jerky. And she would not, I love to eat it raw. She's like, you're going to get sick. And I was like, I'll die happy. But she would make this wonderful deer jerky. And I would love to just make the marinade with her, because she'd dump 2 cans of beer in there, let it sit for 24 hours before she went and dehydrated it. And she would always keep some for me that was like just slightly undercooked, so it was a little chewier and not quite as dry, because it was my favorite. So that was one thing. That's one thing that core memory of my mom, just making deer jerky with her. And being able, I was so happy. I was about maybe 9 or 10 years old, and that was the first time she let me pour the beer into the back. I felt so cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Don't you make venison jerky, don't you?
No, so I hunt, so that's how I get venison. But
Okay.
yeah, I actually submit somewhere, and they do it for me, and I choose, like, I can choose what I want in my venison, and but I love venison jerky. I make it and I give it to friends, because I just have a lot.
Now I've got one question for you.
Yes.
Do you use bow, gun, or truck?
Yes.
I primarily enjoy bow. That's my favorite.
I love it.
I feel like bow is
more primitive.
It's like fair, I would say. Like, it's more challenging. Rifle, it's so easy. It's far away. You just shoot it, and it doesn't even know where it came from.
I completely agree.
Yeah, with
I
the bow,
completely agree.
with the bow, I feel like I need to track the animals, see any signs, get close enough, and if the animal is strong enough and got enough good senses, developed senses, it will detect me and run away and survive, and I will be unsuccessful, and that's fair. And if not,
I would agree. It's very fair, and it's a much more intimate experience.
yeah.
It's a much more intimate experience than guns are so easy. It's unreal.
Yeah.
They're too easy, in my opinion, for multiple reasons.
Especially with the technology being, getting advanced, and you got these crazy scopes and all that stuff. And but yeah, bow's my favorite.
And that's how it started. I mean, if you want to go back to early, it was a bow.
Yeah, or I could be running around with a spear.
You wrestle them down, right?
Just but mind the antlers.
Yeah, you want to make it humane and make it as fast as
right.
possible. You don't want the animals to suffer. That's why I think the bow is like the best, the closest to, intimacy, like you said. But so the food is interesting because I like Korean food. I like Vietnamese food, and sometimes like deals get made around food, and food also brings people together, no matter what ethnicity they are, their looks, their backgrounds, their families, disagreements, and Frank and I mean, we sometimes made decisions over a meal, and when you bring your the band that you manage to the States, like what's the atmosphere like when around food? Like what kind of foods do you treat them with or like recommend? Like where do you guys go? Like I'm just curious. Because they're from Korea and now they're in the States. Do they want Korean food, or are you like, oh, you guys got to try this and that? And
food is my favorite subject.
I love food.
So it's crazy because I actually got super sick while I was in Korea in 2022 when I first started working on my book. So much so that I had an emergency surgery and flatlined for 10 seconds on my doctor's table.
Oh my gosh.
It was wild. But like following that surgery, I had very little help in Korea because I didn't know anybody at that point. It was before I met my networkers, before I met the band. And the food there was just so comforting, and it was just so clean tasting. I actually lost 60 pounds while I was there in 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's wild. So while I was there, my favorite food there was naengmyeon, and it's cold noodles. It's a wonderful hangover cure, by the way. I actually don't have a lot of hangovers. It's really hard for me to get drunk. But anytime you see
Holy
a Korean
shit, it's
person
like we are related.
Over,
I just can't believe this.
naengmyeon is the best. And fun little fact, naengmyeon is actually a North Korean dish.
Oh, interesting.
And it works wonders for hangovers. Give a Korean person an iced Americano and naengmyeon, and they're happy. They're content.
Is it the thin noodles? Like they're not like the thick ones?
Yeah, so they're thin noodles, and then it's actually in beef or pork broth.
I was gonna ask.
And it's iced, so it's iced noodles, and it is unreal. It's so simple, but it's so good.
I've seen it, but I've never eaten it.
Oh, yeah. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. It is my favorite Korean dish, actually. Next to samgyeopsal, I love meat's my favorite food group. Let's be real.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. But when they first came here, when they first got here, I actually brought them to my apartment. It was their first time seeing anything really about me and my personal life. They just know me as this American in Korea that's managing their career. They know me as a friend, but they didn't really see a lot behind the scenes for me. So I invited them over to my place. I had one of my best girlfriends come over, and she's just like, yeah, I volunteered to be your assistant because this tour was amazing. It was so much fun. She was like, we need to do more of this. I'm like, bet we'll work it out because we've got a lot coming down the chute now. But when I brought them here, I grilled in the backyard and I made them the complete American smorgasbord. So we did burgers, we did hot dogs,
Nice.
we did the potato salad and chips, and we did the whole 9 yards. And they still say that my burger is the best one they've had in the States.
Fuck yeah.
Nice.
So I will take that, especially because I didn't cut. I was originally going to do like a 50-50 burger with some like roast beef or some like prime rib or something. But I just kept it simple and just like threw my spices in with some ground beef, and they went nuts for it. So they've enjoyed American food. And it all depends on the day because they were here for a month. So we've had some really rough days. And sometimes I'll take them out to Korean food on the rough days as comfort food for them. But other times it's like, okay, look, you got to try this pasta here. You got to try these tacos here. Like we can't be in LA and not have street food. Like it's impossible. You can't do it. It's illegal, actually. I will send you to jail. So we've had a lot of our conversations and a lot of our trials and tribulations and celebrations over food. And in Asian culture and communities, for the vast majority of them, food is the centerpiece of all of those moments. And it's a sharing experience. So even if, like, for instance, here in the States, we go to a restaurant and we order what we want to eat. But in Asia, what you'll do is you'll order for the table. You'll order 3 or 4 different dishes, one for basically each person, and then you'll share everything.
Yeah, family style.
So it's very, family style. And it's a lot of fun. So now I used to be so stingy with my food. God, my poor dad, bless his soul. He passed away in 2021 to COVID, and that was part of that super tough 5-year stretch. And I didn't really know him. He kind of disappeared when I was about 6 months old. And again, I was raised by my grandparents. So I didn't know him until I was like 21. And I had a severe seizure disorder. So I was lucky to see 21, actually. And I decided I wanted to meet my dad. So I found him and started building a relationship with him. A couple of years later, it was Mother's Day, and there was a strawberry pie on the table. I was so picky about sharing food and so stingy that I actually nearly stabbed my dad in the hand with a plastic fork for trying to take some of my strawberry pie off the plate. And now it's like, it's one of those things that makes me laugh so hard because I'm so different from what I was back then. Again, I was in my early 20s, so I was a bit of a shithead.
We all were.
Yeah.
I was like, we were all shitheads, but I was like stabbing my dad for strawberry pie. Say less. And I'm not normally a violent person, but food used to be that tick for me. Now I'm very much I want to share with everybody. Like, tell me more of your story. Let's share. Let me sample. See if I like it, because I might not. Because if you order something and you don't like it, that's a big commitment.
Right. And don't fuck with my potatoes.
Yeah.
I'm so very protective of the potatoes. It's so funny. Like, have y'all heard of the 5 love languages? And like what those are?
No.
So they say there's like 5 love languages. So you can tell someone loves you, or they receive love in 5 different ways, like acts of service, words of affirmation, physical time, or physical touch, quality time, and gifts. So I joke that I took the entire last year off going through Asia. So I lived in Bali for a few months. I lived in Korea with my health conditions. I stayed in China for a bit, visited Taiwan, Japan. And I have come to the conclusion, I'm sorry, there's something in my eyeball, but I can't see what it is.
Do you take a break?
We can take a break.
Okay, yeah. I'm just like, I don't know what that is.
Okay.
But I've come to the conclusion that there is a 6th Asian specific love language. And that is the sharing of chicken skin.
Yes. I know what
the sharing of chicken skin. I actually met a man who told me that he broke up with a girlfriend because she took his chicken skin without asking.
I will gladly give away my chicken skin. If I don't know why, but like I can't eat if it's crispy, like if it's like
Oh my God, we can't be friends. This is over.
Well, I would give you my chicken skin.
No.
My wife
But see, I would call that balance.
Yeah.
I call that balance. Because first of all, if someone loves something and they give something to you, that is a sign, and they share it with you, that's a sign that they do care about you. However, there's always reciprocity. For instance, I don't like chocolate.
Well, that's odd.
I'm a weird individual, I guess, for that, but I'm not a chocolate fan. I never really have been. As a kid, my grandma said I was the perfect child because I would rather go to the salad bar than the dessert bar. Mm-hmm. Granted, I still ate too much, but that's neither here nor there. But I was just like, you know what? More for me. Right. If I don't have anyone to fight with it over.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah, my wife is always like, don't throw the skin away. I'm like, okay.
Oh, the skin is so good. When I go to KFC, I get a lot of KFC.
Original or extra crispy?
Oh, extra crispy.
There you go.
Yeah. Extra crispy. Right. I got out of that crunch. And at first I didn't understand it because I was like, I love that juicy like bite, you know? However, I realized it just has to be cooked properly. Because if it's cooked properly and it's extra crispy, you still get the juice, but you get the crunch too. Game over. Done.
That'd actually be Roman's celebrity name, Juicy Bite.
Juicy.
Juicy Bite, like an alter ego.
All right, that's it. If there's a rapper that pops up with the name Juicy Bite, I'm suing for copyright.
Yeah, right here. Tell us more about the book and like where can we find the book? I'm curious. Is it published?
Actually, is not quite finished.
Oh, okay.
I am revisiting it because I was in the process of making this book when I got sick. So for any women that are watching, it's a very common, unfortunately, condition. And for any men that are watching, I highly encourage you to talk to your ladies or your sisters about it because it can be really scary. I knew something was wrong in 2018. I started having some really weird issues with my body that weren't quite right. And it got to the point where I'd gone to 5 doctors over 4 years after that, and no one could find anything. I say that very loosely with air quotes. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, okay, well, I've been diagnosed with a seizure disorder. I didn't let that stop me. I'm at the point where it's either heal or throw myself off a bridge. I would prefer to heal, even though that's incredibly terrifying. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of all of this where it started. I don't know if you actually heard of, it's on Netflix, I believe. It's called Burning Sun.
I have not seen it.
I have not, no.
So it's actually a documentary and a story from what I'm told. I don't know the exact details of it because I can't watch it. There's no way. There was this case called the Burning Sun scandal, and it came out and it really came to light in 2018 after I was there. But I was what I would consider to be one of the last victims of the Burning Sun scandal. And that is where there were Korean celebrities and people of influence that had this chat room on a social network called Kakao. It's a communication platform, and it basically runs Korea. But they had this chat room where they would physically assault women and post videos of it and share it. So I ended up at one of these clubs in 2018 when this all happened. It was in March. And I was actually drugged at one of these clubs and I was assaulted. Someone had attempted to abduct me from this club. They had my arm twisted behind my back and were leading me out of this club when I saw my friends outside. And I made it very clear as much as I could because it was one of those terrifying situations. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody, but lights were on. I was fully coherent. I knew what was going on, but I had zero control over my limbs. None whatsoever. I couldn't move anything to save my life. But I was sexually assaulted at this club, and it triggered it caused me to be it caused me to be diagnosed with PTSD. So I fell down this rabbit hole. I gained a ton of weight when I came back. I didn't leave my apartment for 3 months. And that's really what triggered that 5-month stretch of my life that was just hell for me. So, and I was assaulted in 2018, 2019. One of my family members was sentenced to 30 years in prison. And I started having really bad health issues with endometriosis. I had 31 polyps removed in 2022. In 2020, of course, the pandemic hit, but then I lost my younger cousin who was 21 to suicide. She shot herself 4 days after she turned 21 and she left behind 2 kids. 2021, I lost my dad to COVID and I was held outside of the hospital as he died because they only allowed one person at a time and his fiance was inside with him. But I was his next of kin, so I had to make all of the arrangements without him having insurance of any sort, really. And then in 2022, my grandparents that raised me got sick the same weekend that my dad got sick the year before. And then my grandma ended up going to the hospital the same day that my dad went to the hospital the year before. The difference was that my dad ended up on the ventilator for 3 days and my grandma came home. Thank God for that. So in 2022, I was quite literally at my wit's end. And I was just trying to decide, like, do I continue or do I just give in? Because this is a lot. And I decided to go back to Korea. And I talked to my therapist about all this. I was like, I'm going to go back to Korea, back to where it all started, back to the source. And I want to face this. So, but what I'm going to do is it's not just for me because I've been through, a metric fuck ton of shit.
That's right.
And I know that there are other people out there that do not have the ability to face those kinds of things head on. So I'm going to take my journey and I'm going to try and put it into a book form to help them along with it. So I talked to my therapist about kind of what I could do to include that. I was like, I want it to be immersive. I want them to be able to just come down out of their heightened state and just because you don't want to go too far in any one direction. The goal is to just find neutrality and just find calm and peace. So I decided to go and I was going to go photograph Korea. And so I was taking 2 months to photograph. I was going around Seoul. I was going to go to Busan. I was going to go to Daegu a little bit. But in the middle of that, I actually got super, super sick. And I ended up developing an internal massive hemorrhage and lost 70% of my blood.
Wow.
And this was my second trip alone or like without like my family outside of the States to Korea. It was my second time going to Korea and I had 2 friends with me. One went back early, which was completely fine. And the other one got thrown into like an impossible situation. She ended up being my caretaker after having an emergency surgery. And my friend that had left actually found the place for me because I was like, this is wrong. I shouldn't be bleeding this much. I need help. So she found a place for me to go. And without that, I would have died.
Sure.
There's no question about it. So I walked into this clinic, this women's health clinic off the street, no insurance, a foreigner. Thank God they spoke English. Like she looked for one specifically that spoke English. And the doctor looked at me and she was just like, you're changing colors in front of me. I need to run tests. She tried to look at like an ultrasound and scans and things like that. She's like, there's so much blood. I can't see anything. You need to have surgery right now. I was like, okay, my American brain is like, where do I go? She's like, you're going next door right now. You're changing colors in front of me. You won't make it to a hospital. And in the middle of surgery, I flatlined for 10 seconds. And she was very close to pronouncing me dead. But all of a sudden, my heart started beating again. And after that, like, I love my grandparents. And they did the best that they could, you know. They were just like, you know, bring those records back. We'll find some answers here. My problem with that was that I had issues related to that. Again, starting in 2018, 2019, when my body was just like, this ain't right. So I ended up paying $1,200 US for the whole thing.
Wow.
For the surgery, for the medicine, for the recovery time, $1,200 out of pocket for the whole thing.
Wow.
I couldn't have had the medicine alone in the United States would have cost that much.
That's a great investment on your life right there.
Power really quick.
It really was. And it changed everything for me. It flipped everything I knew upside down.
Yeah.
So recovering from that, I paused the book, and it really made me introspective about what I want from my life. And after I met the band, I wouldn't say that they're the end all be all by any stretch of the imagination. If they were to say they want to part ways with me, that's totally fine. It's up to them. But they, for me, gave me another purpose in life. Sure,
a little inspiration.
They reignited that inspiration and that purpose. And so I've revisited my book, and I will be hopefully self-publishing it here probably by January, February next year. It's almost all completely done. I have just been honestly terrified to publish it. Yeah. It's a very vulnerable and very emotional thing for me because there's so much tied into it for me. But what ultimately brought me back to it was the fact that my original plan was, it's not just about me. It was to help other people. So the title that I've landed on is called Heart and Soul. And what it is a collection of those photos from when I went around Korea. And I photographed these beautiful places. They're absolutely stunning, full of history, and they're gorgeous. But what I also did was I took about a 5 to 10 minute audio recording while I was there. So you could hear the environment of where I was as I was there and as I was taking these photos. But I also broke it down into what we call a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise. So it's 5 things you can see, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. Yep. And so it's designed to bring you out of that heightened anxiety state and back down to a neutral place. And my goal is to, once that is published, to continue traveling and do the same thing and make more of these books in different locations.
That's amazing. Is that going to be like an audiobook as well, or?
Yeah. So what it'll be is you'll see the photo and you'll have the dialogue for the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but it'll also have a QR code to where you can scan it and listen to the audio and the sounds.
Oh, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. So that way it's immersing as much of yourself in it as possible with your sight, with your ears, with your sight and your ears, really. So you can see the photo, you can read the text, and you can hear everything, just to bring yourself out of whatever heightened state you're in and back to a more neutral point.
That's amazing. You were not only strong for yourself, but you were strong for others. You were strong to help other people. Yeah,
any concerns you have with your vulnerabilities, I'm sure, it's genuine, and I think that's what people like to see, but we certainly appreciate, we appreciate being here because, there's a chance that you weren't going to be, but
it's crazy
also sharing your story.
Through. Yeah, it's crazy what you've gone through.
So Heart and Soul, is it Heart and Soul, like Seoul, South Korea? Like Heart and Soul?
Yes, so Heart and SEOUL. I'm very, very excited about it. I'm very nervous about it as well. Because there's a lot of like my story, and there's a lot of my history in that, and there's a lot going up to it. And I know that I'm very fortunate. I'm fortunate to be here. I talked to my doctor, and a lot of my family, I don't think really understood initially what had happened until my family doctor was like, honestly, you need to thank God that she was not here and that she was in Korea, because she would have died in the waiting room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I had a COVID related issue, years ago also, and it was touch and go for me for a while. I was in the hospital almost 2 weeks, so I can understand sort of, what you're. Obviously, it wasn't the issues you had or are kind of managing now, I suppose, right? Is that corrected for you, or is it something you have to manage ongoing?
So it's chronic. It's there for life,
Okay.
unfortunately. It's endometriosis. So if it's not maintained and managed, there's no cure for it. It's literally only pain management. So depending on the day, some are so bad I can't get out of bed.
Right.
And it makes what I do very difficult. But I was also diagnosed with another syndrome, with another condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS. And there are multiple varieties of it and extremely hard to test for, but it's a genetic condition, essentially. And it means that my tendons and ligaments are basically as thin as tissue paper. They're super thin. And that has in turn made me incredibly easy to injure or extremely clumsy. For instance, I don't wear high heels anymore because I'm going to snap my fucking ankle. And I've done that 3 times already. I'd rather not do it again.
But you can pick up a drunk guy and throw him.
Yeah.
I mean, if it means protecting another person, I'm out the window. It's fine.
Yeah.
I definitely could not let his mother see him get his ass beat. That would have been really bad. This was a Monday night too.
Oh my God.
On Monday.
On Monday.
Oh my God. Yeah. So I was like, I'm very much a protector of people, and I've known that about myself. And I get that from my grandpa, I'm pretty sure, because he protected my mom. He raised me to basically care for other people. I am very much the type that if the building was on fire, I'd be running inside of it, not away from it. Am I stupid? Maybe. But you know what? If it means that someone else can have a chance, I would rather take that chance to give them hope rather than just preserve myself, because then I'd have to live with that choice.
Sometimes with our impulse decisions or reflex, they're not always the smartest, but it's just a reaction of our personalities,
small town life, farm life, these kind of, you get these ideals that maybe, other people don't necessarily understand unless you're in that, growing up in that situation. It's not to say that other people don't have that. It's just you kind of have a different appreciation when you see animals, and you kind of put this work in sort of on the farm and things like that. So it's it's a little different for people that maybe grow up in the city with concrete and buildings and people all around. And again, it's not to say people don't do that. It's just a little different, I think, when you grow up like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's incredibly different. And I think it's funny because I worked in radio for 2 years. I was a radio host on a country radio station in Missouri, but I taught myself how to speak in what we call clean English so that anyone can understand it. But my natural inflection, I have a Southern drawl. And it's so confusing when people see me and then they hear my voice. They're like, the math ain't mathin'. And so I typically hide it a lot of the times, especially when I'm doing things to where multiple people are watching, because sometimes they just can't understand me.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because, again, JJ is actually one of my best friends, the lead singer of Mary Heyday. He was just like, I like your accent. He was like, please speak with it. And then I spoke with it. He was just like, maybe I need to learn more English.
Take it back a notch.
Yeah, he's like, okay, we'll get there. He was like, but it sounds pretty. I like it. So I was like, okay. And this was his first time. He's from Daegu, South Korea. And a lot of people think that Daegu is, for some reason, I don't know, small. It's basically Gotham. It's Korean Gotham, essentially.
Is that north of Seoul?
No, it's actually kind of central Korea.
Okay.
Seoul is surprisingly close. If people don't actually look to see where it's at, you can see North Korea when you land at Incheon International Airport to the left. You look out the left side. I always fly in on the left too. So if you look out, you can see into North Korea. And it's a wild and trippy experience. But he was telling me, he was like, because I'm very much a minority everywhere I go. I've always been told that I'm either not enough white, I'm not enough Asian, I'm too white, I'm too Asian. There's no in between for me. So I've faced a lot of discrimination because of that. And he was just like, I've never been a minority before. And he was just like, I'm kind of scared of going to the United States. He was like, I don't know what that experience is going to be like. And I was just like, you're not going to have to worry because you've got a local with you. You've got a local yokel, okay?
You back. I got your back. You got me.
Plus, I kick ass.
And the only time they were without me, really, the entire time, was for about, I would say, a total of between 48 and 72 hours, not even a full 3 days, where I went to Nebraska for my great grandma's 100th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And even though I had gone for 3 days, one of my best girlfriends, again, another LA film alum, she graduated in animation. She came in, stepped in, and she took over for them, took them to rehearsal, drove them where they needed to go, made sure they ate, those kinds of things. And really, they never had to truly feel like they were a minority, because I was like, I know you might want that full experience. However, it's not worth the trauma.
That's right.
And if you don't have to experience that, I do not want you to, because it is ugly. It is very disheartening, and it's not something that anyone should ever be subjected to for any reason whatsoever.
And it's very real, right? Yep.
Kayla, what are the new projects or tours you have coming up?
New projects and tours. So first and foremost, they are getting a drummer when they get unjet lagged, when they get readjusted to Korean time. So new projects are going to be, I'm starting on the tour for next year already to get venues and everything lined up. And I'm going to be starting to look at other press connections, media for them. I'm going to be looking at this new artist that I'm potentially might have some management in as well. He's seen some success on Instagram and on Spotify. He's absolutely wonderful. He's also Asian. But really, I'm diving in headfirst into Mary Heyday, and I actually aim to bring a small mini festival to the States next year. And there are a couple of things like KCON. You've got KCON for K-pop, and then you've got what's called 88 Rising, or HITC, Head in the Clouds, for hip hop. But I'm not sure if y'all remember this little thing called Warped Tour.
I have not heard of that.
No, I haven't.
It was a rite of passage for me growing up, and it was actually my first taste of working in the entertainment industry.
What is it called again?
I worked for Warped Tour. So it was by Vans. It was called the Vans Warped Tour for many years. And they had dozens of artists. They would have 7 or 8 stages with multiple people playing from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. And it was a big rock festival, but they would hit about 50 cities a year. And I was just like, we've got Head in the Clouds for hip hop and rap. That's great. I love it. It's amazing. We've got KCON for all of the K-pop and everything, but we don't really have a lot of Asian rock festivals. So my next goal is to not just bring back Mary Heyday next year, but I'm planning on bringing a couple of other bands from the Korean punk scene and the underground rock scene to join them.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I've received a ton of support for that so far. So it's really just a matter of securing the venues and then starting the process for all of their paperwork.
When next time they're in the state, maybe we can reconnect and do another episode.
Maybe we could go to a festival, Roman.
Where is that going to be held? In LA?
So as long as I start it right now, I'm looking to hit between 6 to 8 cities. So I'm planning on bringing it down by region, 2 to 3 in the West, 2 to 3 in Central, and then 2 to 3 in the East. And I have already been told by a couple of other individuals that I know in the hip hop scene that they've got to get me to New York. So New York is absolutely on the list. It is number 1 for East Coast.
We're going to a festival. Bam.
Well, that's close to us. So we'll once we know when, where, we'll make sure we have availability in our schedule so that we
Great
can
to meet
make
you
it.
for sure. Yeah, in person.
Meet the band, meet you.
Wonderful.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, when I was first approached about this, I was very ready to be like, podcast in New York? When do I catch my flight?
Well,
I was ready to fly.
We appreciate you meeting with us and talking to us, and it's
Absolutely.
It's effortless. It's you've got this personality that's sort of just
easy to talk to, very friendly. We often have interviews for the first time with people, and you never know how it's going to go. But it's amazing to see how many people just connect so easily. Just have that personality
and your story.
Your story is amazing, and I'm sorry for all the hardship you've gone through, but I think it made you who you are today. Be proud of your accomplishments, and I understand some of the disabilities are difficult to deal with, but from just what we met and talked about, I think you're doing great and amazing. And I'm looking forward to more of your future accomplishments and meeting you sometimes in New York City or the band. And if not, maybe we can do a podcast again.
Absolutely.
With the band too.
We'd welcome that anytime, you guys.
I would love that. And I know they would too.
Yeah.
They're actually diving so hard into English. It's unreal because there's we met so many cool people. Now we have to be able to talk to them.
That's awesome.
Well, this is universal. Yeah, we could do this.
Yeah.
Yes. Alcohol. Now you're speaking their language.
It's a language everyone speaks. Yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciate you and I know that you're kind of coming off a tour, so you're probably wiped out, but we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, Kayla. Just tell everybody how to connect with you, all your social media contacts, and we'll end there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Again, this has been fantastic. It's been wonderful to talk to you guys. So easy, actually. But if anyone is interested in connecting with me, the easiest way to find me is at Kayla, Kayla ShaDay on everything. I'm super easy to find.
Okay.
That's
good.
Awesome.
For better or worse.
So we're gonna end it here. But if you want to just stay on with us for a minute, we'll kind of have a discussion after.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, Hopheads, Frank here,
and Roman. Welcome to Brews and Banter, the podcast where we sip and spill the funniest stories over a cold one.
We're not just brewing laughs and comedy. We also discuss life stories and current events in every episode.
Follow the frolic on our socials, where we brew up more than just banter. Check out linktr.ee/BrewsNBanter for all the goods.
And guess what? We've got a VIP section. Join our Patreon for exclusive content, behind-the-scenes brew secrets, and maybe even a blooper reel or two.
Subscribe, laugh, and unlock the full Brews and Banter experience. Because life is too short for bad beer and boring stories. Cheers.